Welcome to Skills-Based Health on Demand, brought to you by Mo Shape. Today's video is why skills-based health education. My name is Brad Brummel. I'm the Health and PE Coordinator of Springfield Public Schools, and I am here with Kim Goforth.
Hi, everybody. I am Kim Goforth, and I am the Health and PE Coordinator here in the Columbia Public Schools. All right, we're going to dig in here, talk a little bit about what your session holds ahead. We're going to run through the objectives, and you'll know your takeaways from our session today. We're going to talk a little bit about the role that health skills play in your journey across your lifetime and adolescence as well for all of our students. We're going to talk a little bit about the CDC characteristics of effective health education. We're going to look at the goals of health education as they relate to a few of our national organizations that we frequent on websites. We're going to explore the national health standards. We're not going to do a deep dive into these today. We're going to hit a very surface level. And then in future sessions with Brad and I, we will dig a little bit deeper. And then we'll hit the meat and potatoes of our why. We're going to look at skills-based education 101, give some facts about reflective thinking you can do about making this transition from more of a content-based health education to a skills-based education. So as we do that, we'll look at some helpful resources that Brad and I have come across to make this transition a little bit more streamlined for everyone.
Thanks, Kim. So the main takeaways, we hope that you will be able to, at the end of this video, be able to explain the why of skills-based health education. You'll have the ability to kind of analyze the characteristics of effective health education, reflect on some of the goals that we're going to speak to. Most importantly, you want to be able to access and explore the national health education standards, and then be able to differentiate between the two skills-based and content-based health education.
Perfect. We have prepared a training guide to help facilitate our learning today, and you can access this training guide in the description. Should be below there in your YouTube description. And this will serve as kind of a facilitator of the reflective thinking that we will do throughout our training today. So access this training guide as we move forward, and we will get rolling here. And the first two questions on our training guide deal with the role of health skills. And there are two questions that really ask your personal experience with some health skills. And so we're going to challenge each other here. And I'm going to ask Brad to address the first question. So Brad, if you were looking back on your K-12 experience, what do you feel are some health skills that you took away that you felt pretty solid about that you're still using today?
So I would answer goal setting. I think that goal setting was something that I can remember and recall learning in health education class. A lot of times it was related to a specific health content such as nutrition or physical activity, but just that skill of being able to create a goal, kind of evaluate or measure the goal, and then reflect on it. That's been a skill that I've been able to apply in many different areas of my life. What about you, Kim?
Right. Well, I kind of have twofold here, self-management and decision-making. The self-management piece, I was always an active kid, outside riding bikes and things, was an athlete. I grew up on the farm. And so having some of the health skills already embedded in my life proved some self-management skills that I've been able to carry through my lifetime here. And decision-making as well, trying to fit everything in, keeping your day organized, to be the most productive. And so when you deal with farm life and the weather, Dad was always on us to, get it together, make a plan. And so I've carried those skills through my life here. But, as I look back and kind of moving into number two, I got some of those things from home experience, and I don't know if sitting in my health class gave me those skills or if it was more at home. And so if I think about what's something I wish I could have walked away with, it would have been more of the self-advocacy, not just for myself, but for others, and how I could do it myself, but then I would also take it on and say, sure, I'll do that. But being able to say, to protect my health and wellness, I'm going to have to put that on hold or reprioritize. And so that's one thing that I wish I would have gotten from my health class. So what about you? What would you wish you would have taken away?
Yeah, a similar response. I think advocacy would be the first thing that comes to mind, not only so that I could advocate for my own personal health, but for those that I care about, those that are around me, in my family, in my school, and in my community. I think that would have been a skill that I would have loved to learn at an earlier age.
Right, right. Very good. Yep. Good thinking, good processing. So now it's your turn at home. So take your training guide and just like Brad and I did there, spend some reflective time thinking about the health skills that you took away from your K-12 experience, maybe where you got those skills. Was it truly from your health class? Was it other life experience? And then, boy, I wish I would have had this as you walked away from your K-12 experience. So take a minute and answer those reflective questions on your training guide.
Now we're going to dive into the characteristics of effective health education. You can find these on the CDC website, but we've also conveniently linked them into your training guide as well. So if you have digital access to the training guide, you can click the hyperlink and it will take you straight to the characteristics of effective health education. And these are meant to help guide our planning, our instruction, so that we can do the best job that we can within our health classrooms. Rather than reading through this list of characteristics, we would invite you to stop and read through these, okay? Reflect on these characteristics, and then use your training guide to record some of the notices that you have, some of the things that you know you're already doing, and then also some things that you would like to improve on. So now that you've had a chance to complete questions 3 and 4 in your training guide, we are going to discuss briefly, also in this same resource, some of the listed not so effective teaching practices. These are practices that practices that we see from time to time, and it's important for us to know that it's okay if we see one, but if we know better, we can do better. And so these are things that we want to start to shift, right? And so some of these include scare tactics. We've probably witnessed these through our own health education experiences, but research shows that scare tactics are not effective. We've also probably all witnessed or experienced instruction where it's teacher-led and it's a lot of sit and get, okay? Again, we are not providing practice opportunities in this environment. And then as you can see in the practice on the right, we don't want the educational experience to be check this box, get through this textbook to move our students forward. We really want to, before they graduate, to be able to provide these real skills for our students. So we just wanted to provide some real examples of what some of these characteristics look like in a classroom setting. So you can see here, we have listed some of the characteristics, and you can see some of the examples of what that might look like. So for example, the characteristic, it's research-based and theory-driven. One example is an 8th grade violence prevention curriculum that's based on the theory of planned behavior. Kim, is there another example that you would like to highlight?
Yes, in the third column there, when we talk about either students creating a top 10 list or having that brainstorm activity where the students are doing, like they're actually talking with each other, they're using some research that maybe you've put in front of them to create a top 10 list. I think that those are skills that could bleed through any topical area by content. But those are more what the kids are doing looks very different than if you look at the not so effective practice, looking at the classification of mental illness, like where is this focus? You know, the little triangle that we do in the beginning of health. swinging that practice to, you guys brainstorm what you feel are the top 10 mental health, let's say, characteristics and how they relate to you and your personal health triangle. So those are just some differences there with strategies you can use in the classroom. But those are some that I'd highlight, Brad.
Excellent. So one last time before we move on to goals, if you have not already, please take the time to complete questions 3 and 4 in your training guide, where you are writing down the characteristics that you're already incorporating into your instruction. And then secondly, what shifts do you need to make to incorporate these characteristics? Again, no one's going to be perfect on these, but it's important for us to take a moment before we move on to the next topic and reflect on these characteristics, because these can make a big difference.
Agreed. Great. Okay, now that you've taken a one reflective look at your overall programming, we're going to talk about the goals of health education. And I mentioned in the agenda discussion that we take these from 2 of our big national organizations. And so when Shape America talks about their goals of health education, there's a few things highlighted here, and I'm not going to read this to you. You can do that on your own. But it talks about the main goal for Shape is to provide students with the knowledge and the skills. And I think that we've been really good about the knowledge. We've been really good about the content. And we're making this shift to that skills part of it. So really focusing on the skills-based approach. And we here at our national level, we talk about health literacy and then physical literate people. And so as we look at the health literate person, that is owning their own needs and those of others. And Brad alluded to that in some of his answers. Like we can get real good at maintaining our own healthy behavior and focusing on our unhealthy behaviors and correcting those. But when it comes down to helping others, have we gotten there yet? And so the Shape America goals talk about taking the health skills and then not only becoming health literate for yourself, but then also for others. So that's Shape America's look at goals. And then the wonderful people at RMC Health have kind of narrowed this focus again for us, and their goals of health education is to maintain those healthy behaviors that we have, address the unhealthy ones, and then for our students, you can think about this mindset of delaying any onset of the unhealthy behaviors or the risky behaviors that we tend to focus on in the content part of our health classes now. And then that last one I feel like is huge, develop health literacy. And so that's the piece that talks about what I can do for myself and maintaining that, but then also spreading the love a little bit and helping others around us. And so those are the 2 national groups that we look at for these directions of goals. And so we challenge you to be real mindful of, as you're making these changes to skills-based, come back to the goals. Always come back to the goals of, what are we trying to get out of our health education programming? And so in your training guide here, Brad's pulled this up for us. Questions 5 and 6 ask you to do that. And so if you can get real reflective, and it's a little vulnerable, so be honest with yourselves and where you are. What goals do you have for your students? And everyone's community is different. Everyone's needs are different. Your students are different. So if you would look at your setting, what goals do you have for your students? What do you want them to take away from their K-12 health experience?
So Kim, I'll ask you, as someone that obviously has a lot to do with the health curriculum in Columbia, how do you see your current curriculum and instruction supporting these goals that we've just explored through SHAPE and RMC?
Yeah, I had reflectively thought about this, and, it's vulnerable, like I said, to say, boy, we've got some work to do. But one thing that I think when I look at the goals, we're really working on how to make these health connections cross-curricular, like how we can really take what we've done content-wise, add the skill to it, but then make them apply that to math, their art class. And then when they step outside and get a job and they interact with our community, spreading that health literacy. And so currently, we have pockets of it, but I really want to hone that curriculum as we move forward into making health literate students and persons. And so that's kind of, I can't really nail down one that I feel like we're doing so good, but that's my direction. That's where I want to take us. What about you down in Springfield?
So I would say, as I reflect on the goals that you shared, to me, it's obvious that we want those goals for our students. And yes, like you mentioned, different communities may have different specific goals, but for me, we all want to help our students learn those skills. There's no question about it. I think for me, it's when I evaluate my curriculum, is the curriculum allowing the practice opportunities for those skills? And I think for me, sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no. And so how do we make improvements so that it's more consistent? Because I think that if you go and ask health educators, they also want their students to have those skills, but does our instruction align with that as well? And so I think we have to constantly reflect on, does the curriculum allow the practice opportunities, and does our instruction allow for it as well? And I think that that's important for us to constantly be mindful of.
Right, absolutely. In the development and the whole journey of this process, it's coming back to the why. Why are we doing this? And the answer should be to get your students what they need for mastery. So absolutely.
So if you have not already completed questions 5 and 6, please do that before you continue. But we are going to move on with our next topic, and that is exploring the national health standards. Okay, this is something that you can also find on the CDC website. The national health standards do a great job of providing us guidance and a framework around these necessary and very valuable skills. And we're just going to give you a big picture, kind of just an overview. And then in a follow-up video series, we will have a deep dive into each national standard. And so this is, again, just going to be an overview. But standard 1 in the National Health Education Standards just outlines that functional health knowledge that students need to be able to perform these health enhancing behaviors. Standards 2 through 8 outline individually different health skills. So within each standard, you're going to have performance indicators that break down those observable behaviors in each grade band. And you can see the grade bands listed here. But these performance indicators are similar to a grade level outcome. They give you a little bit more detailed guidance and really help out a ton with planning. As you're kind of planning out learning activities to help your students learn these skills, these performance indicators are a big help. So this is a great image from RMC Health. This breaks down each standard 1 through 8 and kind of gives us a good overview of these different skills that you can see on the left. Kim, when you're looking at these skills, what do you first notice? What sticks out to you at first?
Right. They can be overwhelming when there's this many, but one notice that I have, and I always start with, what I know and what I'm used to. And I think we all do that. The one notice is, where's my content? Where's the tobacco unit? Where's the sex ed unit? So I can pull the language to help justify and write a summative assessment. And you don't see that. You don't see that in these skills. And so that's one notice that I think if I get out of my old thinking, knowing this transition's coming, but it wasn't there. It's not a nice, clean unit by unit. You can't have unit 1 be comprehend concepts, unit 2 analyze influence. We don't get there. So that's one notice I had that was kind of, whoa, when you first see it. What about you? What big notices when you first put your eyes on this?
I'm going to go with the takeaway. I guess my takeaway after kind of going through training on the national standards, after giving myself some time to kind of digest and reflect on them is that these national health standards are what really allow our students that to get to the goals that we just previously moved from, right? We just reflected on those goals. If we can help our students learn these 8 skills, or the 7 skills on top of the first standard, which is concepts, that's really what's going to help our students get to those goals that we've previously mentioned. And so that's why it's caused me to dive deeper into these. And I hope it encourages you to do the same.
Yeah, very good. Yep.
So we want you to make sure that you can access these, because if you can't access them, then it makes it a lot harder. So we wanted just to kind of give you a look in what it looks like on the CDC website. If you click the link again from the training guide, this will be what the homepage looks like. And again, towards the top, you'll have the characteristics of an effective curriculum. And then you'll see the breakdown of each standard over here on the left. You can click on any standard, and then it will bring you to the performance indicators and those grade spans that we spoke of. You can see how in each grade span you have different performance indicators that breaks down that skill at an age-appropriate grade span. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's easy to access, and we wanted to make sure that you had a chance to see what it looks like on the website so that you feel comfortable accessing and exploring on your own. So at this time, next on your training guide, we want you to stop and just take a little bit of time to go click on that link, access the standards, pick one, review some of the performance indicators, and just kind of get a little bit more comfortable and familiarize yourself with the format and the structure of the National Health Education Standards. Then we would invite you, once you've been able to do that, to complete question 7. What is your notice? And then we're going to go into which of these standards is your district already doing a good job of implementing and instructing and assessing? And then which one do you feel like we need to add some additional support and instruction around? So again, take some time, pause the video if you need to, jump into the CDC website, and then complete questions 7, 8, and 9 on your training guide.
Great. Thank you, Brad. So Brad and I have given you some kind of pre-whys. We've looked at characteristics of good, strong, intentional health education. We've gotten those from our national organizations. We've looked at some goals of health education, again, by those national organizations. And we've given you like the surface level of these national standards. And so as we look at this why, I hope you're feeling some of these, right, that's connecting with me. Skills and practice will help us reach our goals and those things. But the next few slides are really kind of the hammer. We're kind of putting this in, and it's probably what hooked Brad and I both into continuing on with the sessions and delivering these. But this is the 101. This slide is probably my favorite that really hooked me in as we transition from this very content-based to skills. And so we know just from a curriculum language, skills are what students are going to do. The content is what they know. And so I think to get me out of my brain, this first bullet here that says learning health content alone will not reach the goals of health education. That was such a strong statement for me to think, boy, we need to really assess what our curricular flow is. And do we have these skills embedded where kids can practice? Because we're never going to reach our goals that I think we all have as health educators, making health literate individuals and focusing on our healthy behaviors and trying to decrease our unhealthy. We all want that, but if we don't put these skills in for them to practice, we're not going to get there. And so I think this is the most powerful why slide. So print this and pass it around to your friends. But this is kind of the nugget that's just been the powerful why for me. And I think I speak for Brad as well. But and then the second bullet, talks about those health skills will help them carry this into the rest of their lives. And I think that's a very powerful thing, too, that they need to do. The way the world has been changing so rapidly that delaying some of the risky behaviors just by knowing some skills and being able to practice them in the safe environment with their health educator, I think is the big why. So this is my favorite slide. If we could put confetti on that, Brad, can you do that? So this is kind of that 101, so skills versus content and how to really dig in. So as Brad and I navigated this discussion with our peers across really the US, we've had some good conversation across our country about, well, what's a good balance? And we talk about this liking to baking. And we don't want you to hear, throw out all your content. Don't have a unit by unit content. We're not saying that. We know that there's valuable content that needs to get delivered to the brains of our kids. So it's finding the right recipe. It's finding the right measurements and prioritizing, really. And here's the kind of magic recipe that RMC Health has kind of indicated what works best. And that is 2/3 skills using 1/3 content. So thinking of your pie, get it? Making a pie with the pie graph. That way you'll keep it in here. But finding 2/3 of your content in your curricular flow, focusing on the skills, giving them the practice time to wrestle with the skill, but using your 1/3 of content across the skills. And so you could still call your unit human sexuality, but what skills are you going to teach through there? Be it self-advocacy for yourself or others, decision-making, goal setting, all of the skills that can be packed into one content area. So that's a real healthy recipe to help our kids get that practice so we can move forward into attaining those health goals that we have for health education. So this is the tricky reflective part. And it's, again, very vulnerable to take a look at. And I'll be honest, when I first had some of this training, I thought, oh, they're really going to make me put a fraction here. Number one, I'm not a fraction girl, but really open it up. We've got to start from a place of honesty, and we're all getting started in this mix. And so in your training guide, we ask 2 questions. Get real reflective on where you currently are. What would your recipe look like currently? And then what do you want your recipe to look like in the end? More of a 2/3, 1/3. So take some time, reflect. If you need to go back and look at the characteristics and goals as well, looking at some of the national standards might help too. Do some reflecting on how you would break down your current curriculum and answer questions 10 and 11 on your training guide.
Kim, you did a great job explaining the breakdown. And again, we are not encouraging to get rid of content out of health education. It is just knowing the balance and prioritizing the skills, because I've seen in several situations and heard from several colleagues that, well, we are teaching the national health standards and those skills, but it's not the priority when it comes to planning or instruction. The content still is, and we're like squeezing in the skill. The skill should be the priority. The skill should be where we are doing a bulk of our planning, and the content is what's coming alongside. We just have to make sure that the priority is the skill. And so the last question that Kim referred to is number 11. What resources do you need to help make this transition? Because it's not an easy transition. And so as you reflect on this, make note of maybe what you need to do, what are your next steps, what resources do you need? And as you're reflecting on this, we have some helpful resources that have been helpful for us. And so obviously we've mentioned CDC numerous times already. We would be making a mistake if we did not refer you to SHAPE, because they have a great health toolbox with several great resources. And RMC Health is who a lot of our recent professional learning has been with, and they've been outstanding. And so if you are looking to provide professional learning for your community or your staff, check out RMC Health, and their health skill guides provide steps for each one of the standards and each one of the performance indicators. And they do a great job of breaking the skills down into sub-skills and how you can teach those. So again, definitely check out RMC Health with the suggestive learning activities and assessments. Some others, the HECAT can be a very useful tool as you're in that evaluative stage. And some other more local great resources are DESE's website and their Missouri GLEs and Missouri Healthy Schools with their website. And then, of course, the MoShape YouTube playlist, which is going to house all of our on-demand video series. So definitely make sure, if you have not already subscribed to MoShape YouTube playlist, that you do that. And as we are talking about it, here is a list of the skills-based health on-demand sessions. So if you enjoyed this video, if you feel like it's helping you with your planning or your instruction, we would invite you to join us for some of these other videos. Our next one is going to be on making that shift to skills-based health. So today was more about the why. The next video is going to be about the how. So we're going to give you some tips and tricks of things that we've done and things that we've learned from our colleagues across the nation on how to make that shift. And then the other two video series are going to be around instructional strategies and, again, diving deep into each national health standard. And we're really excited to offer these to you. So with that, Kim, we made it to the end. If you've made it to the end of this video, we thank you so much for joining us. We've put both of our email contacts if you have follow-up questions. Kim, any parting words?
Just reach out to us. We're all in this together, and it is quite a journey. So reach out to Brad or I, and we can all brainstorm together. But we hope that you listen in to some of our other sessions coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.